Tonight's story comes from a quiet countryside, far away from the noise of the cities. It is a place of wide, empty fields, muddy paths, and scattered trees that look black against the sky at night. Very few people live there now. Most of the houses are broken or abandoned. People in nearby villages say the land is unlucky. They say something happened there long ago. There no one agrees on what it was. The story is about two people who did not believe those warnings. The man's name was Farid. He was in his early 30s, practical and stubborn, the kind of person who trusted what he could see and touch. He had recently inherited some money and wanted to buy cheap land to build a farmhouse. When he heard about an old property that no one wanted, he became interested immediately. His cousin Salma went with him to see it. She was quieter, more sensitive, and not at all comfortable with the idea of visiting an abandoned place after sunset. But she trusted Farid, and she did not want him to go alone. They arrived just before night fully settled over the countryside. The sky was dark blue, fading into black. A thin fog had already begun to spread across the fields, low to the ground like a slow white river. The house stood by itself at the end of a narrow dirt road. It was made of old wood that had turned gray with age. Parts of the roof had fallen in. The front porch leaned forward, as if it might collapse at any moment. A single dead tree stood beside it, its branches thin and twisted like long fingers. Salma stopped walking. "We should come back in the morning," she said quietly. Farid shook his head. "We drove all this way. We'll look around for 10 minutes, that's all." He did not say what he was really thinking, that the place would be even cheaper if people believed it was haunted. The front door was slightly open. It moved slowly back and forth in the wind, making a soft knocking sound against the frame. Farid pushed it wider and stepped inside. The air smelled old, like dust and damp wood. The floor was covered with dirt and fallen pieces of the ceiling. There were marks on the walls where furniture had once stood, leaving cleaner shapes surrounded by dark stains. Selma stayed close behind him. She kept turning her head, as if she expected someone to be standing just out of sight. "Was this really empty?" she asked. "Of course," Fred said. "No one would live here." But even he noticed something strange. There were no animal sounds inside, no rats moving, no insects, nothing. An abandoned house in the countryside should have been full of small living things. This one felt hollow, as if life itself avoided it. They moved from room to room. Most were empty. One had an old bed with no mattress. Another had broken shelves and a pile of yellowed newspapers scattered across the floor. The dates on them were more than 20 years old. In the last room downstairs, they found a wooden chair placed in the center of the floor. It faced the wall. Selma frowned. Why would someone leave it like that? Farid walked around it. Probably nothing. Maybe someone moved it and didn't finish. But when he touched the back of the chair, he pulled his hand away quickly. It was warm. Not just warmer than the room, warm as if someone had been sitting there moments before. Selma saw his expression. "What is it?" "Nothing," he said, though his voice was not steady anymore. "Let's check upstairs." The staircase cracked loudly as they climbed. The sound seemed too heavy for their weight. as if the steps were reacting to something else moving along with them. At the top of the stairs was a narrow hallway. There were 3 rooms. 2 were open, 2 small empty rooms. The third door at the end was closed. As they walked toward it, Selma felt a sudden coldness spread through the air, like stepping into deep shade on a winter morning. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, for it did not answer. He was staring at the floor. There were marks in the dust, not footprints exactly, more like something had been dragged back and forth many times, creating long, uneven lines that led directly to the closed door. He reached for the handle and hesitated for the first time since they arrived. Then they pushed it open. The room inside was small and bare, except for another chair. This one faced the doorway, as if it had been placed there to watch anyone who entered, for it stepped inside slowly. Salma stayed near the door. On the far wall hung something that had once been a mirror. The glass was cracked into many pieces, but it still reflected shapes in a broken, unclear way. Farid moved closer to it. He stopped breathing. In the reflection, he could see himself. He could see Salma behind him, and between them, someone else. A thin figure standing, very still. He spun around. The room was empty. Salma saw the panic in his face. "What did you see?" Before he could answer, the door behind her slammed shut. Salma screamed and grabbed the handle, but it would not open. She pulled again and again, but it felt like something on the other side was holding it closed. Farid rushed forward to help. Then they both heard it, a slow sound from the corner of the room. No footsteps, no breathing. Something like fabric dragging across wood. They turned toward the sound. The chair in the center was moving, very slowly. It rotated across the floor until it faced them completely. No one was touching it. Someone began to cry, "Please, let's go." The temperature dropped so suddenly that their breath became visible in the air. Behind them, the mirror cracked further, with a sharp snapping sound. A long, thin line spread across it like a growing wound, and from inside the mirror a shape began to form. At first, it looked like a darkness gathering in one place, then it became the outline of a person, a woman. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, as if her neck could not support it. Her hair hung forward, hiding most of her face. Her arms were too long, her fingers thin and crooked. After seeing that, Selma could not move, for it pulled her back until they hit the wall. The woman lifted her head slowly. Her face looked pale and stretched, like skin pulled too tightly over bone. Her eyes were open, but completely black, with no white at all. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and dry. "Why did you come back?" Farid shook his head. "We've never been here before." The woman's mouth twisted, almost like a smile. "You always come back," she said. She took one step toward them. The lights on the outside wall seemed to fade through the windows, as if the night itself were pressing against the house to watch. Farid forced himself to move. He grabbed Salma's hand and pulled her toward the door again. This time it opened easily. They stumbled into the hallway and ran downstairs, nearly falling in their hurry. The front door was still open. Cold light air rushed in like something alive. They ran across the yard toward the car. Salma reached it first and yanked the door open. Then she stopped. Farid almost crashed into her. The driver's seat was not empty. A woman was sitting there, the same woman. Her head slowly turned toward them. Farid dragged Salma back. His mind refused to understand what he was seeing. Behind them, the house ground like old wood bending in a storm. When they turned again, the front door was closed. All the windows were dark. The house looked empty, silent, as if nothing had happened at all. The woman was gone from the car. Neither of them spoke. They got inside and drove away without looking back. They did not stop until they reached the lights of the nearest village. For a long time, neither of them told anyone what they had seen. They agreed never to return to that place. But weeks later, Salma began waking up in the middle of the night. She said she heard a chair moving across the floor in the next room. Sometimes she heard a quiet voice asking why she had come back. Farid tried to stay with her, tried to comfort her, but strange things began happening in his own home too. Objects changed places, doors opened by themselves, mirrors cracked without reason. One night he woke to find a wooden chair beside his bed, facing him. No one else was in the room. After that, he understood something he had not wanted to believe. They had not left the house behind. Something from that place had followed them. And then, Farid eventually abandoned his plans to buy the land. Salma moved away to live with her relatives in another town. They rarely spoke after that, not because they were angry, but because neither of them wanted to remember. Years later, travelers passing through that countryside still report seeing an old wooden house standing alone in the fields, even though official records say it burned down long ago. Some say that if you get close enough, you might see a figure sitting in an upstairs window, waiting, watching the road, as if expecting someone to return. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe.